Hello class, in this video we're going to work on how to find volume of composed figures. Before we go over what that is, I want you to pause the video, write in your notebook our complete heading, including your first name, your last name, mathematics, the date, your period number, and the title, Find Volume of Composed Figures. Pause this video now and do that in your notebooks. Now that we have that done, let's go over a key term here where we say composed figures. So we're used to be giving a rectangular prism or a square prism and finding the volume of those figures. However, in reality and in real life, what we are actually doing is various different shapes put together to find the volume. Because if you look around you, there are some things, but most things are not clear in that cutoff as to the point of being just a square or a rectangle. And next year, you're going to be working with other figures like triangular prisms, cylinders, and so forth. But right now, we're going to merge square prisms and rectangular prisms, usually working with rectangular prisms because of the way the sidings are. So that's what's composed figures. So let's review again our formulas that we have. Okay, the first formula that we have is the length times width times height, or mostly viewed as V equals L times W times H. And then the other one is our volume equals base of the area times height, or viewed as V equals capital B times H, with the capital B meaning the area of the base of the shape, and the H is the height of the figure. Now we're going to be using these in these works. Now these are your preferences. For me personally, I tend to usually use the length times width times height, which most people do use. So that's what we're using in this video. However, you may do it using the base area times the height as well. So let's look at our first figure. Here we are given two rectangular prisms that are attached to form sort of like an L shape. And here, if you see this dotted line right here, we're saying here to cut it off there. So basically we have one rectangular prism here and we have another one here. And to always be labeling so that we know which one we're talking about, I'm going to label this one A. And I'm going to label this prism B. And I'm labeling it right on there because I got to find the volume of each one. So I'm going to come to the side here and I'm going to put PA for prism A, right? I'm going to put a semicolon and then I'm going to underline it. And then I'm going to give some space and I'm going to write PB for prism B. And I'm going to underline that. It's very important that I label the different ones because I got to figure out length times width times height for each one of them. So let's look at the prism A first. And I'm going to write my volume formula of V equals L times W times H, right? So I know that I'm looking for my volume. I don't know what that is, so I'm keeping my V. Then I look for the length. The length is what goes from side to side. And if I notice that this side right here, this one right here, it tells me that that's 2 inches. So I'm going to write the 2. Then I look for my width. My width goes front to back. That's this line right here. But if I notice this, I'm told from here that the front to the back or back to the front is 4 inches. So I know that my W or my width is 4. See, that's the hardest part, is that we got to look sometimes to the other prism to get the information. Then we have the height. So I want to know from here to here. But I'm not given that. I'm given this whole thing. But if I look here, it says here is 2. So this part must be 2 inches. So 5 minus 2 gives me 3. So my height is 3. And then I just multiply it, right? And I write it off for steps. So 2 times 4 gives me 8. And then I carry down the rest. So my volume here, 8 times 3, is 24. And don't forget, we always have to put our volumes in our inches. So it's volume equals 24 inches cubed, or I could say cubic inches. Either one is fine. Now I need to do the same thing for my B. So I'm rewriting the formula. I always rewrite the formula. And I don't know what the volume is. That's something I got to find. My length goes from left to right or right to left. That's this part here. And I'm being told here that that's 8 inches. We already said the width front to back is right here. That's 4 inches. So I know my width is 4. And when we were finding out the height here, we realized that the height for this part is 2 inches. So I put the 2. Now I just multiply. 8 times 4 is 32. And then I carry down the rest. And then 32 times 2 is 64. So I know the volume here is 64 inches cubed or cubic inches, whichever way that you want to put it. Okay? And now, since I want to find the volume of the whole thing, all I need to do then is add these two numbers. So I have to add 24 plus 64. 4 plus 4 is 8. 2 plus 6 is 8. So I know that my total volume, my volume equals 88 cubic inches or inches cubed. And then I circle my final answer. So I want you to pause this video now, and I want you to draw this figure in your notebook and write down all of our work. Don't worry if your drawing is not perfect, okay? Just as long as you get the concept of them. So again, as a review, what we did was we cut this figure. We could have cut the figure down here, but they already gave us that dotted line, so that's why we made this one rectangle instead of making it a longer rectangular prism. Then we detailed both prisms, we label, and we find the volume of each one. This way we don't double do it. So if I just took all these measurements, I'm going to be double adding this area here, and I don't want to do that. And I'm also going to be adding an area here that's not there. So that's why we have to find them separately. Let's look at another one. Another rectangular prism. This one's going to be a little bit harder because it has 3 different figures. So I have to sit there and figure out which way do I want to cut it. So personally, what I'm going to do, now there's many different ways of cutting it. I'm going to cut it straight this way. This is going to be 1. I'm going to call that prism A. Then I'm going to cut this one straight here. And I'm going to call this prism B. And then this one I'm going to call SC. So I'm going to write prism A. Leave some space. I'm going to do prism B. And then leave some space so that I can write for prism C. This way, I'm also not forgetting anything that I have. So again, I just write the formula, V equals L times W times H. I don't know what the volume is, so I keep the V. So for prism A, I want length. That is my left to right. So that here is 2 centimeters. So I'm going to write the number 2. Then I got to look for width. Now, the width is front to back. So here's my front to back, which here is the 3 centimeters. So I'm timesing it by 3. And then I want to know what my height is. This is the confusing part here, is figuring out what this height is, because this is the same length as this, right? So we have to say, all right, where do I find the difference? I'm a little confused. Well, if I notice back here, it's telling me my height back here is 3, but the height here is 4. And this whole thing is 6. So if this part is 4 and this whole thing is 6, right? So from here to here is 4. So 6 minus 4 is 2. So I know that this part right here is 2. So 2 plus 3, that gave me my 5. So I have to sit and really think sometimes. So then I do my formula. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 5. And then I have 6 times 5 gives me 30. Now I could label it here, and I'm going to centimeters cubed. So I found the volume of this first one. I now have to find the volume of B. So again, I write my formula, V equals length times width times height. I don't know what my volume is, so I need to now look at my length. So I need to know from here to here, but I only know from this whole thing. But knowing here, if I look here, this tells me that this part is 2, and this part tells me that this part is 2. So if this is 2 and this is 2, that means from this whole length, that is 4. What's left over is 6. So I know that that length is 6. So I write the length equals 6. Now my width is my front and my back, okay? And I've already determined from here that this part right here is 3. So I know that my width is 3. And then my height. Well, I already figured out my height when I was looking for A, which is this 2. So I know the height is 2. Now I just need to multiply. 6 times 3 gives me 18. So I have 18 times 2. And then 18 times 2 gives me 36. So this is 36 cubic centimeters or centimeters to the third power, whichever way that you would like to write it. So I figured out A, I figured out B, now I got to figure out C. So again, I'm writing my formula, volume equals length times width times height. My length, I figured that out here, it's 2. So I have it as 2. We already figured out that the width here is that 3. It just follows over. So that's 3. And then my height, well, here it is. It says it's 6. So my height is 6. Now I just need to multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. And then 6 times 6 is 36. Now that I found the area of all of them, I now need to add them. So I have 30 plus 36 plus 36, right? 6 plus 6 is 12. So I bring down the 2, carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 plus 3 is 10. So now I know that my volume equals 102 cubic centimeters or centimeters to the third power. And then I circle my final answer. I want you to pause this video now, draw this figure in your notebook, and write down all of the work in your notebook. Let's do that now. Now that we have that in our notebook, and we've done 2, I want you to try one on your own. Okay, so here we have one figure. So you could draw the figure where it's straight across from here, going this way. Oh, sorry, not that way. There's a little curved line. I could draw it this way, or I can make it this way and make it 3 figures. I recommend you drawing it horizontally. Right? I recommend you doing that and finding the volume of this and then finding the volume of this. But you can make it the 3 ways if that's what you want. Please do not double over, otherwise you're going to get added volume. Make sure you write down all of your notes. You write down the problem, you do the drawing, and you show all of your work. Even if you don't understand it, I want you to try. You need to try to receive the credit. All right? You may watch this video as many times as you need to in order to help you with this figure.